Hello, hello, hello. I'm Jez FM, and you are listening to the Magical Learning Podcast. Magical Learning Podcast is a podcast that looks at important topics in business and life and breaks them down in a fun and lighthearted way. And today you've accidentally stumbled upon an absolutely awesome episode. So today I am joined by our CEO, Graham Gerstenberg, and our Director of Learning, Danette Fenton-Menzies, to talk about an interesting topic, which is how business and art meet. But actually, we're kind of talking about something a little bit different. Today, we're trying a new concept I invented called a concept sandbox. And what we're going to be doing is we'll be looking at an important business topic, but we'll be putting it in a sort of interesting setting. And then we'll be talking about another conversation, and we will be relating that second conversation to the first one and bring it all together. If that sounds confusing, don't worry. It makes a lot of sense when you start listening. This is a really fun episode. It breaks down some really fun elements, and we certainly have fun with the fact that it was recorded on a Friday the 13th. So enjoy. I hope you love this one. If you have any suggestions, listen to the end of how you can reach out to us. And as always, everybody, have a magical week. So today we are going to be talking about how art and business overlap. But before we really get into that, we're actually going to be doing a bit of a different episode today. And before we even get into what that's going to be, let's check in with the team and see what's going on. So, Danette, you were first on the call. How are you going this week?
Yeah, good, Jez. I've had a very busy week this week. Been in Canberra a couple of days. Have run 7 training sessions this week, plus recorded another podcast. So it's just been a full-on week, but it's beautiful. It is still feeling like spring here at the farm. I'm back at the farm. Looks like the guinea fowls are laying, which is pretty impressive, and my irises are out. So there's lots of purple in the garden at the moment, so it's gorgeous.
It's always good to hear that there's good sort of gardening stuff going on up at the farm. Let's throw to Graham. Graham, how are you going this week?
I'm good. Apologies for the visual, folks, for those of you who are actually watching this, which sort of implies that they've seen it and decided to keep watching, so I don't need to apologise. I was going for the when somebody turns the video version of this on and they're watching it for the first 15 seconds and they're going to say to themselves, wow, yeah, he looks a lot like a slightly older version of Brad Pitt with like 3-day growth, except for all of the other things that are completely wrong with that picture. Hi, Jez. Great to be here.
Great to have you back, Graham. Now today we're going to be sort of playing with this idea. I've been working on it over the last couple of days, but basically it comes from this core idea that problems are problems sort of no matter the context. And to give you an idea, you know, if you have a reliable product that's become redundant overnight, that's relevant if you're Commonwealth Bank, and that's also relevant if you are an elf that runs a shop, you know, in a mythical sense. That can happen to you, to anyone in any context. So we're going to be having a bit of fun here today where we're going to be looking at a regular problem, and this is going to be cooking in the background while we have another chat, but we'll be relating back to it. We're going to be having a problem. We're going to put it in a fun setting. And then hopefully by the end, going through our different examples of today's topic, hopefully we'll start finding some little answers and maybe making some unique observations. The fun of this is that I think that all concepts can there's some interesting overlap between all, and I think this is giving us a chance to kind of just fuse two together in a way that's a little bit unnatural, but hopefully will be a bit of fun. You know, learning's always good when it's fun, so why not make this pretty fun? You know what, Graham? You haven't been on in a while. Do you want to give us a setting? Now, this can be anything from a government department through to a mythical setting. It's up to you. There's no wrong answer.
Could the context be a fictitious person?
Yes.
Okay. Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger. Okay, so for people that don't know who Freddy Krueger is, he is the famous...
Hang on, no, sorry, Freddy. Sorry, no, go away. It wasn't Freddy. I was thinking of Friday the 13th, the movie franchise, but that wasn't Freddy. He was on Elm Street.
You're right.
So the dude with the hockey mask.
Yes. Great. Okay, well, that's good. So this is going to be from the Friday the 13th series. You're talking about Jason Voorhees, famously the ice hockey mask wearing villain that seems to have limitless lives. Now, the concept here is, I guess, that Jason Voorhees he's been put in a management role at Lake Clearwater, I actually believe is the setting of that movie. He's been put in a leadership role, and he has to decide between a leader who is good at people versus a leader who is good at numbers. He's doing a bit of succession planning. And so that's him. So at Lake Clearwater, which is a camp for kids, he is, of course, a villain, but we're going to sort of, I think, put that in the more abstract for this point. And at this point, he's just going to be a camp leader. And so he's going to be looking for things that are going to help him decide between someone who's good at people versus someone who might be better at the numbers for Camp Clearwater. And now, let's just keep that stewing in the back of our mind, all right? This is just going to be a bit of random context, and hopefully we'll start having some ideas around that. But today we're going to be talking about how art and business overlap. And this is one of our reflections podcast type ideas. So we're going to be all bringing a different example. We don't know what each other's examples are. And so hopefully we'll be able to share some interesting insights as well. Danette, do you want to kick us off this week?
I really loved this topic, Jez, because when I think of both of them, you need some sort of foundational skills. So when you start with art, it might be, as a child, you're finger painting, and there will be things you learn that help you get better as an artist. And I think it's exactly the same in business, that there are certain foundational skills that we need to start with. And then once you sort of mastered them, what I love about both art and business is then you have the opportunity to experiment and try new things which give you your own signature. So like if I think of someone like Picasso, I remember years ago when we were all in New York and we went to, I think it was a Guggenheim, and upstairs there was a family collection, and in there was a Picasso, and the Picasso was of, I think, a ballerina, and she looked like a ballerina. And when I read Picasso as the signature, I'm like, because I think of Picasso with his colours and his shapes and stuff like that. And so when you asked this question, I went straight to that picture and I went, what, he mastered how to do like those foundational skills in terms of being an artist. And then once he got that, he started experimenting and created his own style / his own product. And I think it's the same in business. So, for example, if you don't master the foundation of managing money, then eventually you're not going to have a business. It doesn't matter what you experiment with. So, and I often see, and I know Graham and I have both coached people here where they're starting out in business and they spend a lot of time redoing their brand and their logo rather than going, I need to learn how to sell, for argument's sake, or I need to learn how to market. And so I think mastering those foundations, but then going, okay, what's my purpose? What am I about? And actually experimenting to give, whether it's the art or the business, the flavour that is you. So that was my first start.
Danette just took all of my answers, like everything I'd written down that I was going to say, she said. So it's probably a great example of like how many copies of the Mona Lisa are there in the world. So somebody creates an amazing piece of art and then everybody else just copies it. Shame on you, whoever you are. One of the things I love about the podcast and just people, I don't know people actually, let's just get away from that, but I really do value the fact that we have such different perspectives, because when Danette started talking I was like, hang on, is that a different topic? And I just love the way that you came at it from a completely different angle. And part of me was thinking, the foundational skills, I 100% agree with that. And at the same time, we probably also, again, both know, maybe not so much artists, but certainly people in the business space who didn't have the foundational skills and they got found out. So I think the longevity thing becomes the foundational skills in the context of longevity, either as an artist or as a business owner, become so dependent on those foundational skills. And great answer, by the way, Graham. Thank you.
No, I mean, that's great insights. One thing that I kind of wanted to tie this back to was now Jason Voorhees sitting at Camp Crystal Lake, deciding what to do. And I think from that, Danette, you can actually start pulling away some things. So maybe it adds another factor. Who is willing to be a little bit more experimental? Maybe this is something that Jason should now be putting in his noggin, One's good with people, one's good with numbers. Who's willing to try new things?
Yeah, I reckon that's really important as part of the succession planning, because, you can have those foundational strengths, and a good leader is adaptable. A good leader has to be willing to experiment and fail, just like you do in business. So in fact, often the greatest growth in art, I suspect, as well as business, is that we try different experiments and some work, some don't. And it's being okay with that uncertainty. And I think when you're looking at people, if you just go, well, they're good at this or they're good at this, and we don't give them that ability to expand and adapt, who knows, we might be missing something really important.
Because I get really literal about this sort of stuff sometimes, and I was thinking about, Jeanette mentioned some guy called Picasso, whoever he was. Yeah, one of the interesting things about a lot of the painters, if we just look at that sort of genre of artist from a few hundred years ago, is that almost universally, when we think about like our definitions around success, usually have to do with brand awareness or how many people know about you, and financial success, like can you make a living out of it? And just by those two measures, most of the people that we believe today were phenomenal artists back then were dismal failures. But it didn't stop them, thank God. And then I was also thinking about this whole thing about business and art and the overlap, and I wanted to bring a prop along, because I sort of went straight to thinking about, well, how do we even define art? Because that's really hard. But we could spend a week doing that, and we don't have time. So I thought one of the ways for me, one of the very easy examples of where business and art overlap is in writing. And probably because I do a lot of it. I still haven't written a book, but I do a lot of writing and love what we can do with language. And my relationship around that, sadly, is still largely limited to the English language. But what we're capable of doing with that is just phenomenal. And I thought, a really good example of where we have seen art and business overlap is the commercialisation of books, of literature, where somebody writes a book, and in the past, we can just look at this from the perspective of somebody writes a book because they care enough about that topic, that thing, whatever it happens to be, that they want to create something. Case in point. I don't know how well can you read that? Do I need to reverse my, so the Oxford Companion to Chess, a commercial success in every sense. I have no idea. I found it in a used bookstore and I thought, I need something to prop up that table out the back because it's wobbly, so that worked really, really well. Tying that back into our mate Jason with the ski mask. Tricky, but not impossible. I love Danette's point. I think, Jez, you also made the point about, if Jason's sitting, and the minute you started talking about Camp Clearwater, it was Camp Clearwater. I immediately went back to Danette might vaguely remember it. I'm going to butcher the song that I don't really care. It's Hello Mother, Hello Father, here I am in Camp Grenada. So, can you track, Jez, how many people just disconnect from the podcast once they hear that? Because I
actually can, yeah.
Yeah, good. So apologies for that. Yeah, there's so much in that sort of art. So one of the things that art, I believe, encourages in us is risk taking. If we can accept that art is all about creating, it doesn't really matter what genre, whether it's a painting, whether it's a piece of music, whether it's literature, whether it is a sculpture, whether it's food. Now I'm hungry. I don't think it really matters, but there's a risk involved. And one of the risks is that nobody else will value it, whatever we create at all. That everybody else who sees it or experiences it will just think, well, so what? Which sort of then comes back to the question of why we're creating it in the first place. And for me, this is one of the areas where I think business and art have overlapped maybe more than we would like them to, is that I wonder whether sometimes the decision about creating something might be made based on, can we make money out of this? Rather than, is this something that might actually add value to the world just as a thing? So is it adding value to the world, or is it adding value to our profit margin, our bottom line? And perhaps the point could be made, or the argument could be made, that you could do both. Steve Jobs would certainly say that, the Macs, the iPad, the iPhone did both. They added value in terms of their artistic creativity and function, and they absolutely added to Apple's bottom line. I don't know. And discuss.
Graham, I think that you've actually given Jason some great tips here, to be honest, okay? Because what you've done is you've actually combined with what Danette's talking about, a little bit with experimentation, because you mentioned risk-taking. Those two things go hand in hand. Can you make money or value to the world? Well, then we've got a decision between someone who is good at people versus good at numbers. So to me, all this is leading to Jason should have values that he puts to their business, and that maybe should be a framework to look at, you know, who understands the values of this place and therefore will experiment appropriately within these values or also take risks. That's my takeaway anyway.
I've never seen the movie, so I don't even know who these people are. But
you'd love it. It's
I would not.
It's a kids' movie.
I would not watch it all.
It's like Mighty Ducks.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
I know
like the
it's
ice
not.
hockey movies, the Mighty Ducks. It's very similar to that because there's a guy with a hockey stick and a mask.
Also, Jason should, if that's his name, should be thinking about what's the purpose behind that particular business, and then also looking at which of those might be able to bring that purpose to life really well in how they lead. And also, just to throw another idea into the thing, because one of the things I love about art and I love about business and smart businesses is collaboration. So maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other. Potentially, it could be both of them, and they could collaborate. And then I'm thinking, because I know you both love music, the amount of collaborations where really great musicians have collaborated and created something that is outside what they would normally do and is just brilliant. I really like, it's Elton John and George Michael, the Don't Let the Sun Go Down on You. I really liked how they collaborated on that, and that's just one song I can think of. So imagine for Jason, maybe there's also the possibility that the two of them could actually add value to one another by bringing their strengths, and that creates a leadership team of two rather than one. Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated, but man, there could be some amazing results from that.
A literal kumbaya moment. They're at a camp, an American camp. It really is good thinking there, Danette.
I love that kumbaya.
So maybe you could take that a step further and just pair the potential leaders up and get them to do a duet of Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me and just select based on that.
That's not bad. American Idol style.
And because we know what's going to happen to the losers.
Yeah,
because Jason happens to be there.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. He's got a very harsh firing system he's got there. Not a lot of golden parachutes coming out of there. Well, I wanted to bring in my example of art and business, and this one is a very 2024 example, I would say, because it's only 2 months old. And it's from a YouTube channel. Don't be sort of disturbed by the name, but it's called Gooby and Dooby. Okay, this is the name of the channel. And I know that sounds like I'm about to talk about something that's an offshoot of Bluey or something, but it really isn't. So basically, this channel, Gooby and Dooby, 2 months ago, this guy, out of nowhere, released a video that now has 12 million views. And the title of it is, I was an MIT-educated neurosurgeon. Now I'm unemployed and alone in the mountains. How did I get here? Okay? 48-minute video. And the thumbnail of that video is him standing in some sort of American national park, and he looks like this sort of young guy. But anyway, I haven't actually watched that video, but that is an interesting sort of thing. But I did watch a video that he did on the same channel called Help Your Body Heal, The Power of Food and Healing. And so he basically outlines his story of, he used to be a neurosurgeon and worked on a lot of people's spines as well. And he was saying that he noticed some people that were scheduled in for a surgery sometimes came in and at the time of surgery didn't need a surgery. They'd fix themselves. And he's saying this is very much preferable because a surgery, sometimes the scar tissue around a spine can attach to the nerves and they can have permanent damage. So any spinal surgery, is very tricky. And this is no different. And so anyway, he was saying if people can heal themselves, that's good. What he started to notice was that it was really just came down to the diets of people. So if people were eating whole foods and brown rice and things like this, literally injuries that would have required surgery could heal within months. And not for nothing, this guy, he says that he's 40. One of the top comments is he looks like he's 25. So this is just another thing just to kind of put with that. But for me, what's interesting is someone who was a neurosurgeon back, earlier last year has now found a whole new way to help people via the power of YouTube through this weird art. And what's interesting about his videos is they're largely unedited. So there's a lot of time where he's just sitting there gulping or drinking water. It's very much just him being raw, but that in its own way is a sort of unique way to be raw. And yeah, it's just so, even though I haven't actually, taken up this diet and what have you, just thinking of how someone who's gone from a profession where they thought they were helping people, stepped into something slightly more artistic, is now actually going to be able to help so many more people. And to me, that's sort of... And now he's also going to be able to sustain himself. With 12 million views on YouTube, that's at least some income coming in for him to live this new lifestyle. So anyway, that was just something that I thought was an interesting modern example of how art and business can kind of overlap. So yeah, did you have any thoughts?
I love the fact that, one, that he's not constrained by what he originally did. So I love that idea of experimenting and going, okay, well, what are some of the passions I've got? How can I use what I already know, but then actually learn a heap of other stuff? And I love the fact that he's gone, there's a lot of people that filter a lot of stuff so that it looks perfect. I love the fact that he's really granular, and so I'm going to go and have a look at this after this to bring something to the world that, it could have been a big flop, but he did it anyway. And I think I really like that because it comes back to the purpose, the value, and Graham's thing earlier where he was talking about, is it about money? Is it about impact? And, sometimes we'll have that impact. It won't always bring a financial thing. And I think I really loved, and Graham and I can't remember the speaker, Graham might remember it, when we're at Titans where the guy defined the new billionaires as the people who had a positive impact on 1 billion people, as opposed to necessarily making $1 billion. I love that example that you came up with, Jez. It's just awesome. Let's keep roofing. I'll shut up now.
Oh, just taking the example of the neurosurgeon. So is he Gooby or Doobie? Do we know? Does it matter? Probably
yes,
not.
he's Gooby. His dog is Doobie, who does show up in some of the videos. Yeah,
makes perfect sense now. So I'm just thinking out loud. Jason, not the one from Titans. You're amazing, but Jason, ski mask Jason, sitting on the shore of Lake Clearwater at Camp Clearwater. Get yourself a video, dude, and because you could just set up your own YouTube channel where you have these potential people who are great leaders with people who are great leaders with numbers, where you are doing the whole American Idol thing, pairing them up, getting them to do "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me," and then judging and then carrying out the sentencing. And if that doesn't go viral on YouTube, then what will?
You know what, Graham?
And sorry, just to go one, a couple of random. I haven't been on for a while, so I've saved all this waffle up clearly. Just the whole stuff about making it raw, making it real, and I'd like to think that we do that. Clearly, I didn't get to makeup this week before I jumped on, so it is what it is. But I'm also just sipping away on my completely unbranded, which was a lovely gift from somebody at Titans about a decade ago, and I've still got one, so that's exciting.
That was a Tim Hortons mug for the listeners there.
Oh, sorry, folks. Yes, completely pointless. For the people who didn't have video, they're sitting there, what was that? What did he just do?
And the Jason was Jason Silva.
You go.
Silva.
Yep, that was him. He didn't show up with a ski mask on at Titans, but maybe he left it out the back. I don't know.
Well, I was going to say, Graham, my hair never makes it to makeup, so don't worry. It's a flavour of the Magical Learning podcast, I think.
At the moment it's an each way bet as to whether my eyebrows will connect with one another before they connect with my head hair. It's hard to work out what direction it's going to go in. One other thing, actually, to Net's point that I thought was really very valid, very helpful is, again, this idea of pivoting a little from where you are and what you already know, but and in a way where you still get to leverage a lot of your knowledge and experience. It's not like you completely park it, put it in a cupboard, lock the door, walk away for completely and start all over again. So, Gooby, what a great name, has taken a lot of his knowledge and experience and all of the education, everything he's done as a neurosurgeon and all of the related stuff around that. But then he's identified an opportunity to be of service to himself and to others in a very different way, which I think is fantastic. Another great example of how art and business overlap is YouTube as a channel. It makes a couple of dollars for Goggle, Alphabet, whatever they call themselves today. But it also provides an amazing platform for people to create stuff and share it with the rest of the planet, some of which helps us. And yeah. Anyway, there you go. I'm done.
I was going to add too, Jez. So earlier this week, I recorded one of our author podcasts with a gentleman called Jason T. Smith, which, just a teaser alert, you'll love his book and his story. He started his business in a garage and sold it a number of years later for $100 million on the ASX. So very interesting. Now, he said in that interview that he was a task person, but one of the things he learned as a leader is how important relationships are and people are to helping businesses grow and stuff. And so I suspect, coming back to the scenario with Jason at whatever the lake is, Clearwater Lake or whatever, that, thinking about what do we need in those leaders, by combining them, collaborating, we'll get that people thing. If Jason decides that it's the person that's better at task, it would also be supporting that person to upskill in their people side of things, because ultimately, whether it's good art or good businesses, you need people. So if I'm an artist and I'm solo by myself, I'm going to get ideas from other people, whether it's looking at their art, whether it's talking to them, discussing my ideas, bouncing ideas off each other. So I also think part of Jason's thing is thinking about whichever, or if he decides to combine, making sure that people side is really important, because really we need people to also feel safe, and we need it to tease our brain to think differently as well.
Those are some great examples, and I think that in this very specific example, making his people feel safe is a fundamental thing, given the context. So I think that may be a way.
Hide the hockey stick.
I loved all those insights, and I love how you both are connecting these things. This is exactly what I was hoping for, because you're both looking at and connecting all these things in such a different way than my mind is, so I'm loving it. I wanted to give one more example. I'm not sure if either of you had any more examples, but I had another one that I wanted to look at. And when I thought of art and business, the first thing that I went to actually was advertising, because I think that's a pretty common place where both of those kind of feel like they fit together. And I actually went on a bit of a rabbit hole on the oldest advertising. In ancient China, the oldest advertising wasn't even written down. It was actually flute players who were advertising lollies. So not unlike an ice cream van sort of uses music to allure children, this was sort of used as a sound advertisement for lollies, which means that jingles have been around for thousands of years, which is pretty amazing to think about. And then we just had other examples that I just wanted to highlight. So Egyptians used papyrus to make posters. So that was something that happened. We had in Greece and Rome, a lot of advertising was used for lost and found property. So that's interesting. And then finally, the oldest bit of sort of paper advertising we have was found in Thebes. It's from 3000 BCE. And it is a slave owner who is trying to find a slave while also promoting a weaving business. So anyway, these are just some more additional things of how art and business have overlapped throughout history. Any thoughts?
I love that, because they literally have combined art with people. So whether it's, flute, which is music, we're selling lollies to kids and whatever, the papyrus in ancient Egypt, etc., all of them have sort of gone, you know what, let's even amplify beyond just one person and use art as a way of, raising awareness of what businesses can do. So there's another nice connection there. Maybe Jason might want to get the kids and perhaps the two new leaders to come up with some art ways of promoting what they do at Lake Clearview.
Well, I mean, I'm glad we've had all of our different insights, because I think it gives us the opportunity now. We're sitting down with Jason. Jason's listened to our whole podcast, and I think certain things have popped up for me that I think Jason should strongly consider. And here's sort of my key takeaways. So the problem at the start was how to decide between a leader who's good with people versus good with numbers or task in this context. And our conversation was about how art and business overlap. For me, the biggest takeaway here is that, can Jason make the decision to make this business something that is values-based, or is it going to be a numbers-based thing? And if it is values-based, does he want to take it onto a YouTube channel and grow it through that way? Or does he want to bring it together with some of the numbers stuff and maybe create a duo in what we have already described would be a beautiful kumbaya moment? Did either of you have any more takeaways that you wanted to share, and any tips for Jason? I'll start with you, Danette, actually.
So I love the collaboration, and I love, because what we see often when we're not open to experimenting in that is we hear no but. And I like the idea of yes and. So we can have values and the numbers. And what I really like is what we see when mastery starts to happen. And we haven't spoken about this in the podcast, but it just sort of tweaked this in my brain, is we combine and then we simplify. So great art moves in, brings everything, but then goes, let's strip away so it is the essential stuff. And I wonder for Jason, whether combining the two of them and then thinking about how do you create a leader that is more than one of them, combining them into two and making it so that it is breathtaking. So parents, if I'm assuming Lake Clearwater is a kids camp, parents would then go, I absolutely have to send my child here because I see brilliance in the leaders, and that could be an inspiration for our kids moving forward. I don't know, that was a bit weird.
No, but you know what, Danette, I think that's a really powerful thing, because it asks Jason to completely do a 180 on his thing and go from a villain to someone, as you said, where parents have to send their kids to the thing. So how can he sort of be more inclusive to people being alive at his camp, I suppose, is something. Graham, I will go to you. Any final thoughts you had, and any tips you had for Jason?
So many. Look, to be honest, I'm not sure that safe return of said children was a metric, a KPI that the business wanted or needed to track. For me, I think a lot of this, and I go back to the longevity thing comment or point that I made earlier in thinking about, because I think I made the question, can you have a business that creates art or creates profit? Could it possibly do both? And the answer is probably yes. The longevity piece often, I think, comes back to, before we decide if Jason's sitting there looking at the contestants as they are just butchering an amazing song, but doing it with love. If he's really clear on why he's doing this, and not from a Freudian perspective of he has some issues with his mum, but why are we running this business? What are we trying to achieve? The longer we can stay sort of relatively clear on that, the easier it becomes for us to make decisions around things like, who are the leaders that we need, and what sort of leader do we need to have? And just because, again, I value language and use it terribly. One of Danette's points before about creating a leader. So you could take a leader that is really good at numbers at the moment, but not very proficient with people. And then one of the things that we've learned business on planet Earth in the last decade is that people skills are far more important and far more valuable today than they ever have been. So I've got a leader who's great with numbers, but not so good with people. What do I need to do to create a leader from that person who's both? And for me, we can't. How do we create a space and hold a space where that leader who's great at numbers but not great with people feels safe? Going back to Danette's point earlier about this whole safety thing, because I think it's so important. How do we create and hold a space for somebody where they feel safe to be artistic, to do something different? It's like to pivot. I know I'm really good at numbers. I'm not good with people. People are weird and there are no rules. It's like 1 + 1 is anything that person over there wants it to be, so it does my head in, go away. So how do we create that space and keep it safe for somebody to dip their toe in the water, even when they fear that there might be like a bajillion piranhas in there who haven't been fed for 6 months? I don't know if there's any piranha at Crystal Lake. This is just getting a bit far afield, but you get the idea. And how do we provide that encouragement for that person to try something different, knowing that they will almost certainly fail, which is what we need them to do because that's how we learn. It also keeps them safety around that. Us end of the lesson. I haven't got the answer, by the way, but I think that it's really important, go back to Net's point, that how do we create a space where we can help people feel safe and also encourage them? It's like giving them a gentle push, not literally pushing them off the end of the wharf into Crystal Lake where they get eaten by the piranhas, but giving them that encouragement and that support at the same time to do something different so they can become either somebody who's great with numbers now who becomes really good with people, or somebody who's a great people person but terrible with numbers who can also learn those skills. I'm done.
What you're talking about, and what is sort of also, I guess, the message of the podcast is the power of collaboration in this context and how much we can help each other and how much we can learn from each other. And I wanted to actually share what this could really look like. So I've actually gone and I've created an AI image right now. Hopefully you can see this. So this is Jason. I've created an AI image of Jason Voorhees hanging out with two new camp leaders who are his new camp leaders and learning from each other.
I'm hoping that was not the before photo, but the after photo,
Yes.
Jez.
I would
Nice.
say so.
Nice. Love your work.
Well, thank you both.
I love that you created the AI art of that, Jez. It's so cool.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for trying this concept sandbox with me. It's actually been really fun. I feel like we've had a lot of laughs. Yeah, and brought a lot of different insights. To everybody that's been listening, thank you so much. We have moved to Mondays, and we've been seeing some good success from that. So hopefully you're enjoying it at the start of the week instead of the end, so you can tee off your week that way. Thank you everybody that's been subscribing and sharing.
Just before we sign off, Jez, sorry, can I just really, really quickly send just a quick shout out to Robert England. Sincere apologies, but look, let's face it, your work in Ford Fairlane was set the bar.
What did that mean?
It's like, I got no idea.
I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure Robert England was the scary guy with the scissors for hands in Nightmare on Elm Street. You know what? I got it wrong right at the start, way back.
That's beautiful. You've brought it all. You've completed the circle there, Graham.
And confused us as well. Love it.
Well, we've all magically learned something today, and thank you all, everybody, for being on the Magical Learning Podcast with us. As always, have a magical week. Alrighty, this is a little bit at the end of the podcast. Yes, we've done the end of the recording, but yes, the podcast is still going. It's because we realized, we were just chatting then, we actually want your feedback on this. So if you listened to this and you had any solutions or examples of great art plus business overlapping, please share them in the comments. YouTube were very on it in terms of following all those comments. We're getting a lot of views there, so feel free to drop them there. And then also, if you have any ideas for a setting, as I said, it can be something like a bank all the way through to, a gnome's business that they're trying to start up in sort of tech. Anything you want to give us, please give it. If you want to use celebrities or fictitious characters like Graham used, please use that as well.
What, are you saying Freddy Krueger's not real?
I know, unfortunately, in the way that Donald Trump thought that Hannibal Lecter was the late, great Hannibal Lecter, in the same way I hate to crack open the truth and say, Graham, unfortunately, Jason Voorhees has been played by many actors. It's not even one actor, so it's multiple people. It's at this point, it's not even one person pretending to be him.
Very disappointing. I'm just going to go and read my chess book now.
Yes, that's what we needed. Yes, go learn about the Bulgarian defense, and we'll hear from you next time there, Graham. And as always, everybody, this is actually the end, I think. As always,
This time.
Have a magical week.